The European Union is about to make huge changes on the way Apple users charge their phones. Of course, Apple is not happy about this. They have also figured out a way to get around that pesky right to repair law. Hi, welcome to Zgadgetreview. Let me catch you up to what's happening between the European Union and devices, but I will say mostly Apple, and I'll get to that point in a minute. The European Union has voted to make USB-Cs on devices the standard port on your device in order to have one standard for charging devices that is easier for people to use. Instead of having different companies with their own chargers that you have laying around or you might have had laying around back in the day, they want to have one thing that everybody can use in order to reduce e-waste. And the reason makes sense. If you buy a device that doesn't use the cable or charger that you had before, that cable or charger is going to end up in the trash most likely. Unless you're one of those people who loves to collect cables and chargers for absolutely no reason, hoping and praying that one day that standard of charging is going to come back. Sorry to break it to you, but most likely it won't. So it's time to throw away that charger for that old BlackBerry tablet, Dad. And the reason why I say that they're mostly targeting Apple is because most phone manufacturers nowadays include USB-C charging on their devices. It's kind of what the standard has become within the industry, except for Apple. As you know, Apple includes their own proprietary chargers, which is the lightning port or lightning cable. And they haven't moved away from this, despite them adding USB-C ports to some of their devices, like the iPad Pro, the iPad Mini. And the hope was that Apple will actually include USB-C charging ports in their coming line of phones. Of course, that didn't happen. And they're still pushing the lightning port. Now that the European Union has pretty much passed a law to make it a standard, means that Apple is going to have to change their ports. But of course, Apple isn't going to make it easy. And there's a huge reason on why Apple isn't going to make it easy. And one of those big reasons is money. If you're not familiar with what the lightning port technology is, it's proprietary to Apple, meaning that anything that uses the lightning port on your device has to go through Apple for review. Also, Apple gets a cut out of those sales. So any speakers, any car chargers, anything that uses that lightning port, Apple has a take on what they make. Kind of like what they do with their store. Monopoly, anyone? Now, once the news came out, this is what an Apple representative had to say. We remain concerned that strict regulation mandating just one type of connector stifles innovation rather than encouraging it, which in turn will harm consumers in Europe and around the world. Well, let's break that down, right? This is, as I said before, another fear tactic from a corporation to make you stick around with what they have. So one, Apple doesn't want to lose on the royalties from that connector. Why will they change that connector from the other devices? Because the iPhone is their biggest selling device. iPads, I'm sure, sell in the millions, but the amount of money that they get from an iPad isn't the same as the money that they get from an iPhone. So it will make sense to stick with the iPhone as a lightning port device versus the other devices. Also, because they're trying to make the iPad into a mini computer. And in order to make it a mini computer, they have to be more open to people being able to use that mini computer for a variety of things instead of making them stick with just one thing. If you make them stick with just one thing, your device doesn't grow, doesn't get broad adoption from the masses. And that's what you're trying to do. If you are a person who uses Windows, for example, but you just want to get an iPad Pro to do some light editing and stuff, chances that you're going to go with an iPad Pro that has USB-C charging versus Lightning port charging, you most likely are going to go with the USB-C one over the Lightning one. Just because it makes it easier. It'll work with everything that you already have in your hands. The other reason why it isn't actually a big problem to their consumers and blah, 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 blah around the world is because there's something called fast charging that I will say mostly every single phone within the Android ecosystem supports. Apple doesn't support that. And the reason why is because the Lightning port isn't capable of doing fast charging. There hasn't been a huge innovation in the Lightning port as there has been with USB. So if you are talking about stifling innovation, then why haven't you innovated already within your field? Because you don't have to. 3, going back to the money, those Lightning port cables are crap. They break all the time. People have more than one often because they break all the time. And e-waste, which is exactly what Apple said that they were trying to get rid of when they decided to remove the chargers out of their boxes. The main reason why they said they were doing this is to mitigate e-waste. But the thing is, if you're trying to mitigate e-waste, right? Let's think about it from a logic perspective, which I think my take on that was wrong before because I didn't think about it as much as I have lately. If I am switching from Android, let's say, right, that I've usually been an Android user, but now I want to use iPhone for whatever reason, I will have to go out and buy a new cable and charger in order to charge this device because I don't have a Lightning cable or charger from the past. So I have to go out and spend the money on buying this. But now I have an extra USB-C charger or even mini USB charger that I have no use for. Where is that going to go to? Most likely the trash, creating e-waste, exactly what Apple says that they're trying to mitigate. Logically, coming from that perspective, wouldn't Apple be one of the first companies to say, yes, we are going to adopt USB-C in order to mitigate the thing that we're trying to mitigate by getting rid of the charger in the box? But no. The reality on why they got rid of the charger in the box is because, one, they don't have to spend money on making chargers to put in every phone. They can keep the price the same because prices on iPhones did not go down once they removed the chargers. Not only that, the packaging becomes smaller because, again, you don't need to include space for chargers, meaning that you can pack more into a container in order to ship more devices. All around is an incredible smart business decision in order to make more money, which is one of the reasons that Samsung has adopted the same thing. Because once they see that you can get away with this and people will continue buying your devices, the market goes and says, oh, we can get away with that? Let's do it. Yes, the biggest company that's going to be affected is Apple, but at the same time, Apple should have made this change already once they change their other devices to USB-C. They're not doing it just because they can't, but just because they don't want to. Of course, the EU law does not affect wireless charging, which means that Apple could actually change their devices to making completely portless, as it has been rumored for a while. This law has been kicking around in the EU since about 2019. I think actually about 2016, 2019. So this is something that obviously Apple has known about. MagSafe was brought back by Apple on 2020. And it's something that they actually are pushing really, really hard. If you think about it, they have accessories, they have chargers, they have gone pretty much all into MagSafe. And a lot of people for a while were like, why are they doing this? Like, what's the point? Yes, the coolness of being able to attach things on the back of the phone because it has magnets and all those things. But this is something that they had actually used in the past and they had actually gotten rid of, and why they're bringing it back. I think the reason why they brought it back is because of this EU law. It only makes sense that if they don't want to get rid of their proprietary charging port where they cannot charge more money, that they find a solution for this problem, meaning that MagSafe might actually become the standard charging port for the iPhone going forward. Will it happen next year? Probably not, but probably will happen the year after, because once the law goes into place, companies have 24 months to change their devices to have USB-C ports. So it could be that if Apple sees that the rate of adoption for the MagSafe accessories and things is going well, which it seems that it is, that Apple might say by 2023 that iPhones won't have chargers anymore, and they're just going to rely on MagSafe technology. And they're going to come up with some asinine thing about the environment and things because, they're never going to accept that they did this because they were forced to, but because they wanted to and they came up with the idea somehow. So stay tuned for a video on that when it happens. But I think that's what they're going to do. I think they're going to get rid of the ports on their device and they're going to make it all MagSafe devices. Now, you might say, well, if they're forced to change, and what happens with all those people who don't have a charging cable for an iPhone, like a USB-C? Well, that argument to me is invalid because, again, most older devices besides the iPhone come with a USB-C charger nowadays. So chances that you won't have a USB-C charger by the time this law kicks around are very slim to none, unless you're a person who has never ever bought any other device besides Apple devices, which, here's the catch, you would have had to buy a USB charger, or you would have gotten a USB charger from Apple when you bought your iPad mini or iPad Pro. So that argument makes no sense because Apple is already making the change in other devices, except the iPhone. Again, the big money maker. That brings me to my next part of why I have issues with Apple. So the right to repair. If you're not aware what right to repair is, in a very short, condensed, quick form, is your right to be able to repair the device that you purchase without having to rely on the company that sold you the device. That's technically what it is. Of course, Apple is one of those companies that is very, very controlling about the way the devices are repaired. If you're a repair shop or person that wants to repair Apple devices, you have to go through a reader's training and you have to be investigated and checked and all these things in order to be able to be allowed to repair Apple devices. This is like a huge process. There's many videos that or articles that you can read about that if you want to find out more. So the right to repair movement started and it's been going around for a while, and it's finally been able to become a law that was signed this year. What that meant for people who use iPhones is that they could take their phone anywhere to get repaired, especially if the screen cracks, which is usually what happens with an iPhone. And instead of having to be part of Apple Care and only pay $29, which is not a bad deal, if you aren't an Apple Care person, that means you can pay up to $329 to have the screen repaired. And that, of course, is not fair because if I have a small crack that I could go to, I don't know, You Break, I Repair, or whatever the place is called, you break, I fix, and they charge you, let's say, $50. Why can't they charge me $50 to fix the phone versus $329? But the problem also is that there's been reports that if you do that, iPhone could refuse to refix things if they believe that there's other things that need to be fixed on the device. So it comes with their gotcha things. It's not simple as, here's my phone, I broke the screen, fix it, give it back to me. And again, Apple's controlling nature. Phone Repair Guru, which is a YouTube channel, put out a video where they show that if you replace the screen on an iPhone 13, that Face ID wouldn't work. And he does different tests where he shows you that the phone actually works if you take the screen out and replace it within using an iPhone screen. But the moment he uses a third-party screen, Face ID breaks and the phone gives you a warning telling you that Face ID isn't going to work. And this is the way that Apple is getting around the right to repair law, where they're technically saying, yes, you can repair the device, so we are complying with the law, but Face ID isn't going to work. Sorry. And that is an issue. Is it something that they can probably fix with a software update? Hopefully they can, and hopefully they do, because it will be really shitty that they did this to their users, where people can finally go and have their stuff fixed anywhere they want, because guess what? You purchased the device, you own it. So I would like to know why Apple is doing this, why they are deciding that, hey, yes, we're going to comply with the law, but, here's the catch. As I just said, gotchas as they do. It doesn't make any sense, right? The only thing that makes sense is, again, that they want to control how people get their phones repaired, and that is actually done by them or someone who they have vetted to do it the way they want it to be done. This isn't the first time that they're doing something like this. Back when Batterygate happened, when they were throttling people's batteries and it was figured out that they have been doing it for years, and they offered a free repair for people to just send their phone and get their battery replaced, there was a lot of people who were forced to first fix other issues that Apple found with the phone before they could repair it. And again, that doesn't make sense. Why does it matter if my phone has other issues? All you have to do is open it and put a new battery, close it and send it back to me. I'm not asking you to change anything else on the phone. I'm sure when you sign up to get a repair for free, there were a bunch of legal stuff that you had to go through before you actually could send the phone, where they said they weren't responsible if the phone broke or all these other things that I'm sure they were protecting their assets from. So this is just a history of what Apple does. This is the way they operate their business. Look, and I'm not trying to vilify Apple as much as it might sound like that's what I'm trying to do. What I'm just trying to do is say, if you are an Apple user, it is time that you vote with your wallet and that you tell this company that you don't agree with certain practices that they have. If you believe that what they're doing is wrong, like getting around that right to repair law and not adding the ports that everybody else uses, then you should say something and do something about it. Apple makes great products. They're beautiful products. Overcharged, but beautiful. And yes, an innovative company. One could argue that phones wouldn't have changed as drastically as they did if it wasn't because of the iPhone. But just because you innovated and changed things in the world does not give you a right to become an anti-consumer company. Tell me in the comment section, what do you feel about the way that Apple is doing things? Do you agree with their practices? Do you disagree with their practices? That's it for me. Go ahead and subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. It really helps the channel. Go ahead and hit that bell so you can be alerted every time we have new videos. And thank you very much for watching.